Charles Hatcher, welcome to Signature Required.
Glad to be here.
You are a farmer at Hatcher Family Dairy, carrying on your family's 200-year legacy in Williamson County, Tennessee. As a passionate advocate for the future of agriculture, you work tirelessly to sustain your dairy farm, which is one of the last two in the county. With your background in agricultural business and hands-on experience, you strive to maintain the Hatcher legacy while adapting to the changes of modern farming. I feel like you're a dying breed in a way that you're fighting the fight, though.
Correct. It's I'm kind of an exception to the rule. Average age of farmers now in the U.S. is in the mid-60s, and that's a problem. So I take that personally and see it as a challenge as well, and try to advocate as much as I can and educate.
We dug up 5 things on you, Charles, on the internet, and we're going to read these 5 things. So
brace yourself.
Yeah. Hopefully none of these put you under, because we would really feel bad if it was just one farm after this one rather than 2. So here are 5 things that we feel like our audience should know about you. First, you are a 13th generation American farmer and a 6th generation Tennessee farmer. 2, Tennessee is losing 10 acres of farmland per hour. 3, the average farmer in Tennessee is 60 years old. 4, you've embraced cutting-edge technology such as robotic milking systems on your farm. And 5, your family's journey was featured on National Geographic's Docuseries.
That's correct. All those are correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so none of those are lies. Yeah, it's we've got quite the history and the story, and we're very passionate about it. So every farm is basically family run, and there's stories to every farm. And for ours, it's unique, and we want to carry that torch for future generations. But ours dates back. I'm a history nerd, and we've traced it back to 200 years. And this past summer, we actually went to Virginia, where my ancestors got off the boat in Jamestown, literally, and then came down to Tennessee, where we are today. So each generation leaves their mark and their legacy, and I feel like that I'm at least trying to do that. I've had some big shoes to fill. I think the most impressive out of my ancestors is probably my great-granddad, who served in both world wars and kept the farm going and survived the global pandemic in 1919 and then went through the Great Depression and 2 world wars. And I'm thinking, man, I'm having a bad day. And I'm like, wait a minute. If he can do that, I'm just being a little sensitive here. I need to tighten up a little bit. So it's daily reminders and, being on the same land and same property and walking the same footsteps, and is my granddad, my great-granddad, my dad, and 2 great-granddads ago. So that means the world to us, and now I've got a little one now, so it's pretty cool to be able to, have him in that environment and raise him that way. I wouldn't trade it for anything.
I looked at your website and I saw you actually have a family museum on the Hatcher farm that people can go and visit. When did that open? Has that been a passion project of yours, or has that been around for a while? It's
actually been a vision of my wife's. So we've done some agritourism in the past, but we went through a major transformation with our operation in the past 2 years on embracing technology and cutting edge technology in the farming world. So as a result, we overhauled our entire setup and our typography of the farm there, the layout, the buildings. And we wanted to be able to open up for the public to come see and kind of self-tour guide. So this past, I think, 3 months ago, we opened up to the public, but we wanted to really highlight in this tour, the self-guided tour, the history. And in our year-long research of our family and the farm, and we got accepted in the Tennessee Century Farms program, which means there's over 100 years of continuous farming that goes on the property. And you have to provide deeds and farm records. And so in that in that pathway, we ended up having a passion about our local community and the local people there that were there for generations before us. It was a little thriving farming community, 100 years ago. So we kind of put out the word that we're doing this museum, kind of not only highlighting Hatcher family, but kind of the community as well. And we started getting donations, people bringing relics and artifacts into this museum to kind of highlight the local community. So it's taken on its own thing, which is awesome. We like highlighting that. Friends and family just, hey, I've got this of my granddad's that he used, when he was milking cows, or I found this in the garage. We used this when I was a kid when we were harvesting tobacco. Stories like that that people want to bring to the forefront in our museum. And there's a lot of hard work that happened before us, too. So
Sure.
It's important to let those people know.
I got to know, what's your favorite piece in the museum? Like, if we're going to go on this self-guided tour, what is not to be
I think
missed?
my favorite piece in there is probably, we've got an original milk license plate, a milk permit from 1926 that we
Cool.
found in the barn when my great-granddad was in there milking those cows. So it's still in great condition, and it's 100 years old, literally. So that's probably my favorite, because that's like, there's some dents and a crack in it, and that's kind of like a testament of the time in farming. It's challenging. It's going to bend you. It's going to try to break you, but you keep going forward.
So it's a project of your wife's that, or let me say it this way. Your wife has a passion project
Yes.
of greatness. What's her name? What's a little story there? Because I think we got something to unearth on this.
Yes. So my wife, Mary Morgan Gentry, is part of the Gentry family across town that does pumpkins, and they've got it going on out there.
Oh, we know Gentry
yeah, they're
Farm.
famous.
Field
Yeah.
trips, they're world famous.
We have been to Gentry Farm many, many times.
So it's like a fairy tale story on how we met and got married in the two farming families. And I say when I need some therapy, I just go out to their farm and get off of our farm. And her parents do the same thing, come to our place. We just need a break from our farm for a couple hours, so they come out to our place. But she is... the Gentrys have a very high standard out there, and she's helped with that over the years. And she's got a talent and an eye for design work and interior design, and that's what she majored in college. So she calls herself the self-director of the beautification committee out at Hatcher Family Dairy. So she's made us look really good.
Aw.
You mentioned a couple minutes ago that there is a celebration of farms that have been in continuous operation for 100 years. So your father is the Commissioner of Agriculture for the state of Tennessee, and you may probably know this, but he has a Twitter account that he goes to these farmers and recognizes them on video and awards them this certificate of 100 years of operation, and they are some of the most heartwarming videos I've ever seen. And it is so neat.
He, and that's really what he loves about his job, is going boots on the ground and going to these farms and meeting with these families, because they're passionate, they're multi-generational, they've got a story, they work hard to keep their operation going, their family to survive, and he'll go to those operations and those family farms and come back to us and share the stories too. But he really wants to highlight that, because that's important to know where your food comes from and the stories behind them.
So maybe we'll take that, help us understand what the crisis is. So we read early that there's 10 acres an hour of farmland that is being lost. Most people have heard some bit of this narrative that farming is in trouble. Farming feels like it's been in trouble for decades now. Mm-hmm. So help us understand from someone that has been part of 13 generations of it, what's going on?
Yeah, a lot of times in farming, we're kind of an exception to that, because we produce and process and distribute our own product that we produce there on the farm. But if you're conventional, you have no control over the price of your commodity or your good that you're producing.
You're growing corn. Corn goes high. Corn goes low.
That's right. And
totally out.
It's like a roller coaster. The stock market, it could be record high one day, the next day it's record low, but your costs are still the same, if not increasing. And so that's a problem. And then you look at the value of farmland. If I'm the average farmer, which is about 60, and I've worked my whole life, not the most profitable gig in the world, but I'm sitting on millions of dollars worth of land, why not just sell and take the money and live happily ever after? So, and there's encroachment on the farmland around. It might make it harder for you to operate, to drive the tractor, to harvest corn across the road, because the road has got a lot more traffic now, and there's obstacles with that too. So it's a multitude of things. A lot of it is out of the farmer's control, unfortunately, the growth and development and the prices of your product you're producing. So, and it's hard for first-generation farmers to get involved because you've got to purchase land, and land is really high, especially in this area of the U.S. So there's some challenges there, and it's important. And there are some programs that are programs out there that are getting started and that they're really focusing on how do we keep that farmland? How do we help that farmer that's thinking about maybe selling that farm? Or, a lot of times I've had friends that their dad or their granddad's been farming, but they've gone off to college and they found carved their own pathway besides farming, So it's hard, man. It's 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And you could have your best crop or your best livestock in the world, and then you've got a weather event that happens, like we've had recent events happen that can be catastrophic. So things that you don't have control of in farming, tend to be your biggest obstacles. And Mother Nature is probably number one. You could have one year you could have your best year ever. The next year you have your worst year ever. So, there's challenges, but farmers are very diligent, hardworking. They care about the land. They have a passion. They're family. It's multi-generational. So, and I try to advocate for that as much as possible. Not necessarily for our business and our farm, because our farm and business is no better than any other farmer that's doing this. It's just what works for us and how we've adapted and evolved over time for our little operation. So, but anytime I can have opportunities to talk about farming and agriculture, I take advantage of those a lot. I never shy away from cameras or interviews and anything like that, because I feel like if I can fly the flag for farming and be an advocate and show that there are some young farmers that are out there, because I'm half the age of the average farmer. So pretty passionate about it. And I was also a high school agriculture teacher and instructor for 4 years too.
I think part of what I read in your bio and as we were doing research is your passion for technology and farming technology. Can you talk a little bit about, because I think the average listener would have no idea about the technology innovations that are happening. What have you guys been doing at Hatcher?
So we, there's this kind of like this persona that people envision of the farmer with a pitchfork and the overalls and the straw coming out of the mouth, and not really plugged in with society and the technology. But, I'm very lucky with my family that we're always trying to evolve and get better. I've got friends in farming families that this is the way they've done it and they're not going to change and they're just going to keep rolling. But my family, we come up with kind of crazy ideas and we bounce off. We're a team and we make those decisions. But we feel like embracing that technology is going to help better us. So when we made this major transformation 2 years ago, we were actually thinking about it years before then about robotic milking. There's a labor issue in the world for that matter, especially in our industry in agriculture, with it being 7 days a week, holidays, weekends,
Right.
evenings.
Cows don't like it when they're not milked.
That's right.
I've heard that. I
Yeah,
know
that's
enough
right.
to know.
So the ladies have always got to be milked, and you can't say, "Hey, it's Saturday. Can you not just
Yeah.
work today?"
They get a little grumpy.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So, with it being 7 days a week, that's a challenge for labor. So, and this technology kept coming out, getting better and better, and we came to that crossroads on. I think we need to do this. It's a big investment, but we feel like it's going to pay for itself in the long run. Especially with the labor costs, we're going to get better efficiency with our feeding program, with our milk production, and just analyzing all that. It was a good move for us. So now I'm happily retired from milking cows, and we've got robots doing that. So the cows, they do their own thing 24 hours a day. They can go in there, and that robot does it.
Okay, wait. I need you to stop because I'm sure this just makes sense in your head. You've seen it.
Yes.
I have so many pictures of what it might
Yeah.
mean that a robot is milking your cows and it is self-service for these ladies.
It's not a humanoid kind of thing. So it's a machine that walks in. It's got a big arm on it, and it's got the teat cups on there, and there's infrared lasers on there. Mm-hmm. And those lasers do 3D imaging of the cow. So she has her profile. Every cow has their own profile. And they wear a collar with a sensor on there, and it's kind of like an Apple Watch. And it scans her when she goes in and tells us everything we could possibly want to know about that cow. Her activity, her footsteps, her milk production, how much she's eaten that day. Is she getting sick? It gives us health reports on detect sickness before we see symptoms.
Wow.
And my dad and my sister are both veterinarians, and to have that data in real time all the time with an app on our phone is pretty incredible. So it's made us better cow managers and herdsmen as well during this transformation. We're about 6 months into it. We still don't really know what we're doing, but we feel like we're getting into a groove here, and the ladies have gotten acclimated to it. And it was a challenge that first 2 weeks, and they told us, hey, the cows they're gonna be freaked out. They're gonna think this thing's gonna eat them. It's gonna take time.
I bet.
So, but I'll
I'd be
give
mad if you were monitoring all of my food and footsteps
I give the
too.
manufacturer credit. This arm is like bulletproof because these cows kicked it. They put all their weight on it, and it just keeps coming back. So it's like the Terminator, keeps coming back.
I'd kick you too.
So
That's
we've got
great.
2 robot units, and each one is capable to manage about 60 to 70 cows. And so we're milking 107 cows right now. So those 2 robots, they have access to them 24 hours a day. So they just come in on their own, and it's still fascinating to me to see it fully automated. These cows, they're under less stress because they're on their own schedule. They come and go when they want to instead of our schedule as farmers. So it improved the cow's quality of life and the farmer's quality of life. I can tell you that. So. And my wife's a lot happier that I'm more available now and more flexible schedule. So, but that data and technology, that it's amazing. It still blows my mind, and I'm in it every day. So, but and just having that in I can literally be milking cows. I make fun of myself. I'm milking cows, and I'm on my couch right now, and I can track it on my phone to make sure everything's is okay, and it alarms me if something's a glitch or whatnot. So it's pretty awesome.
That's cool.
And maybe talk some about your product in that it's unique in that you all are managing it end to end and distributing it all throughout Middle Tennessee. So maybe just talk about how it gets to the customer.
Yeah. So we, in 2004, 20 years ago, we were at a crossroads with my dad and my uncle being the partners on the operation. We were a smaller dairy, and it was getting harder and harder to make ends meet. And I was graduating high school at the time, and my dad said, "Is this something you want to carry on and you want to be involved with?" And I said, "Absolutely." He said, "Well, we're going to have to do something different to keep this going, or we might have to sell the cows." And so he said, "I think we should bottle and sell our own milk And we looked at him like he had 3 heads, like, because this was unheard of at the time, having control over the product, the milk, from every step of the way.
Because prior you would just sell it off, they'd come pick it up.
Conventionally, the cooperatives would pick it up. From there, it would go to the grocery stores.
Yeah.
So he said, I think that's what we're going to have to do. So, a kind of a leap of blind faith. It was unheard of at the time. We were kind of the pioneers for Tennessee in that regard. And I happened to be enrolling at Middle Tennessee State University, and they had a little creamery on campus in the ag building. And so they were gracious enough to partner with us, and they had a little truck would come to our farm, get the milk, take it to campus, and in turn we purchased a bottling machine, donate it to the university, and then they would bottle our milk. And so in between classes, I would go down there, bottle the milk. Sometimes I would drive the milk back to the farm after classes.
Wow.
And then we would hand label it, hand date it. We called them labeling parties, and we would get anybody and everybody we could.
That's how you got your wife, right?
Yeah,
the labeling party.
She wasn't in the picture then, and I'm glad she wasn't, because she probably would have run off after seeing that stuff. But we called them in-laws and outlaws from all down the road, basically. Hey, well, and it was kind of like a potluck. We called them labeling parties. So as we started to do that, we were gracious enough to talk to a man named Andy Marshall of Puckett's, and he was kind of getting his feet under him with Puckett's there in Franklin, and took a chance on us on the product. And it's been awesome how we've formed these, I call them lifelong friendships, from local businesses in the community in the greater Franklin, Nashville area, that they didn't have to pay a little bit more for a local product, but they did. They believed in us. They cared about the operation. So, fast forward 20 years from that point, we started at 2 or 3 places. It snowballed from there. This whole local food movement thing happened, farm to table. And so we were just, lucky enough to strike the fire right there when it was starting to get some steam, and we started at the Franklin Farmers Market. That was kind of in the early stages, and then it just all kept going, momentum. So we kind of grew with the whole movement in Nashville now. Had that food, I call it a foodie city. It's kind of like the new LA with all these restaurants coming in and whatnot, but they're all pledging to locally source their food, which is awesome. So I can't emphasize how blessed and fortunate we are to have been in that, kind of grow with these local businesses together and partner, so in the community. And we haven't done any marketing or advertising. We just thought, if we do put out a good product and stand behind it and we feel good about it, it'll sell itself. And word of mouth is the best form of advertisement, we believe. And so anything that we've ever done, TV, radio, whatnot, has all come to us organically. That's kind of been, it's come to us. So, and we outgrew MTSU's capabilities there, so we knew it was time to build our own processing facility. So we cut the ribbon on that in early 2009. We called it Abe Hatcher Creamery after my granddad. And so ever since then, we've been bottling there. And now we're in over 100 outlets in the mid-state radius between 4 counties, Williamson, Davidson, Murray, and Rutherford. We've got 2 delivery trucks that run 5 days a week. It takes a small army to make it go, but we're a producer, processor, wholesaler, distributor, and retailer all under the same roof there, which is pretty awesome. And I still get geeked out whenever I go to a coffee shop or a restaurant or a store that carries our milk, see people using it. It's still have to pinch myself, even after almost 20 years. So, so it's a lot of work, blood, sweat, and tears, and we've made a lot of mistakes, and we still do, but that's just part of it, and and it's been challenging. I mean, we've had some tough times, but family pulls together and we get it done.
I love that entrepreneurial story that is finding ways to do things different and sticking through it. And your whole family legacy speaks to that you are taking what's been given to you. You're a steward of that and saying, I'm going to find a way to make it a little better, make sure that we're not just doing the same thing, because that's how we've always done it.
Right. I'm also a football coach, just completed my 11th year of that. And when I was playing back in high school, my coach said, never be satisfied. And I always take that into life too. You know, it's don't be complacent. How can we get better at what we're doing? So, and I'm always looking for that. And I'm not the only one that's making decisions. Again, I can't emphasize it's a team unit. And we value our employees' input too, and it's a team atmosphere. When we're there, even our employees are like family to us. So it takes all of us for sure. And you have to just sit back sometimes, like, how cool is this? That we get to live on this now 7 generation farm with my son, and. Man, it was like Monday. We bottled. It was a 15-hour day for me. I'm pretty exhausted. It's grueling, and then I get home in the day, and I get to see my niece and nephew and my son, and the sun setting is beautiful evening, and the cows in the background. And so I was like, this is what it's about right here, for the next generation, and then just being able to be here on this property and the farm. So you feel like you're connected with the dirt almost. It's pretty cool.
I'd love to get your perspective on the crisis that's going on with farmland in general.
Yeah.
And I think you bring a really unique perspective, because with your father as the commissioner for agriculture, but also such an active farmer, one thing that I have found to be so true is that people that come from a problem usually know how best to fix it. Now, sometimes it's not in their capacity. They don't have the power or the money or the influence, but it's often they that have the idea to start changing the course.
That's right.
I'd love to hear what your thought is from someone that has lived it, to say, what are some policies, maybe they're state policies, maybe they're federal policies, maybe it's not policies at all, but what are some things that you would educate our listeners, the overwhelming majority of which are not farmers,
right,
to how we might be able to turn the tide?
I think the general person, I think I've heard the other day, is 3 generations removed from agriculture production. So I think, having these state, local, and federal programs, and I've been able to get involved with some of those at the federal level with United States Department of Agriculture. So they've got young farmers and ranchers programs and cost share programs. So that's important for my side, for the farmer side, the young farmer side, on these cost share initiatives and programs. And then on the general public side, I think it's all about education. So knowing, I interact with a lot of people, and some of the kids think that food literally just comes from the grocery store.
Yeah.
So that's a problem.
Yeah.
So that's why we want to open up our doors to the public and educate them. So education and knowing, we all have to eat, no matter what the circumstances is or what your background is. We've all have to eat.
Yep.
Food is important. So, less than 2% of the population produces all the food. So I think educating the general public and then diversifying as a farmer, doing more value-added things. Now, I talk to farmers a lot that ask me, well, what's your secret? Our secret is our location. If we're in the middle of nowhere, we couldn't do our value-added practices. I mean, we're 30 minutes away from a capital city. We're 15 minutes away from one of the best farmers markets in the state. This county is top 10 in the nation income based, so we're so fortunate to be in this situation. But these farmers a lot of times struggle with, if I can't control the price of my product, how do I do it myself? And so, having programs, and my dad's he's very passionate about that, being coming from our situation. So he's really had an emphasis of that statewide and hopes to introduce some more legislation to help save the farmland, I guess you could say. And then the federal level, I know there's initiatives about rural farm development. How do we introduce fiber optics, internet, and technology to these areas that can embrace that technology for these farmers to be better off? For us, again, we're so lucky to have fiber internet in our area to help run these robots and this technology. So there are things that are going on, but I think we've got to be better as farmers too, to educating the people about where their food comes from. And I think, honestly, COVID kind of recalibrated people on how quickly things can change.
The supply chain. Everybody was all of a sudden really mindful about where the stuff comes from.
I think there is kind of a grassroots homestead movement happening now.
Yeah.
That's getting a lot of momentum. People, I went to the grocery store and they didn't have eggs, so I think I might get 10 chickens and do some eggs.
I feel like everyone has chickens
right
now.
Yes, or I think I'm going to get some honeybees and try honey. And people have to realize too that farming is not just cows and tractors.
Yeah.
There is so much under the farming umbrella. We could talk for 3 hours on what agriculture is. And so if you've got 10 chickens, you can be a farmer. So I think this homestead movement is kind of getting some momentum, and COVID kind of recalibrated that. Man, our supply chain can be just impacted just like that. So how do I be less dependent on that? How do I provide for me and my family? And so I'll never forget when that happened in March of 20. People freaked out when the grocery stores were out, and where do you go? Let's Google where the farms are.
Did you have people showing up for milk?
Absolutely, we did.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yes. And so we lost 60% of our business overnight with the city and the lockdowns, and cows have to be milked. It's not like that we can't tell the cows to stop producing milk. So we pivoted overnight, my wife's genius idea, on let's do a drive-through pickup, a contactless drive-through pickup with our milk. And
I love it.
And we partnered with local farms. Some good friends of ours were produce farmers that lost their business through the restaurants not being open. So they would drop off their produce, we would have milk. Then we had another farming family friends that had pork, and we kind of did like a drive-through grocery store.
Wow. So
we not only helped sell our product, but other products from other farmers too. So, and man, it was crazy during that time looking back at it, but we had to pivot overnight with our business.
Sure.
And so, again, we all have to eat. And so, we pivoted, we got through it, we teamed up with other local farms and got through that. So with the perishable product in all of farming, it's gotta keep moving.
Yeah.
So it's, having that team and that support as a family unit. But I think that recalibrated everybody the COVID times. But as going back to your original question, I think educating, and then for the youth too. So I was involved in 4-H. There's great programs in 4-H and FFA, which is Future Farmers of America. And I had kids in my classes that had no farm background whatsoever lived in subdivisions, but really had a passion for it. So how do we get them involved? You know, how do we light that fire? So that's a long-winded answer to your question, and it might not be an answer, but I think it might be some possibilities and ideas. But we can all do better. I can do better as a consumer educating myself, and I could do better as a producer educating those people.
There's something I want to call out of the answer that you gave there, that I think is really important, which is saying that the homestead movement, where people are seeing that they can grow or produce a little bit of something for their family.
Yep.
I think there's developed a stigma where now that most people are 2, 3, 4 generations removed from farming, they feel self-conscious to say, if I'm going to do a little garden, I'm just like a city slicker that is a wannabe going up to Home Depot, getting stuff. And it's almost like, because I'm not doing it in a commercial capacity, that it is in some way not as meaningful or as valuable. And I think your message is really important to say, hey, if you've got a half acre that you want to do something agricultural, there's a spiritual component to it. Like, I've grown tomatoes, cucumbers, stuff my whole life.
Right.
And there is a spiritual component to just having a worship of the Lord as you're digging in the dirt.
I mean, your hands are in the dirt. You're putting something in the ground, and you got to have faith that it's going to produce and it's going to sprout. And so there is something to that. You know, that's one of my favorite things ever is we'll plant, and I'll go out there a couple weeks later, and I'll start to see it peek through. I'm like, there it is. You know, it's pretty cool to be able to do it. But you're right, that spiritual component. But no matter what your setup is, you can be involved in agriculture.
Yeah.
That's the main thing. If you live in a high-rise apartment, you can do a little garden in your window.
That's true.
So it's important. That's a very important.
Really important message, because I think that is how we can tap into the future of some first-generation farmers, because it's super intimidating. I mean, we think about trying to look at a lot of different ways to make a buck in a world, and I think I would have to go deep down the list before I would choose to try to compete in the farming space, because I don't know what in the world I'm doing.
Yeah, it can be intimidating. You see millions of dollars worth of equipment, and these guys have been doing it for 200 years. I'm not even in their league. You know, I can see how that could be.
Yeah, it's like that dude on the corner is so old school that he's going to forget more than I'll ever know about farming.
Yeah, and we have to break through that stigma, you know, and that's, again, we're actually very small scale, and you know, I can go to some farming conferences and I can be intimidated myself, but
that makes me feel better.
Yeah. So
our tiny garden.
Yeah. You're not just saying that, Charles. I mean, you can be intimidated as well.
I mean, we've got our operation there. Our dairy is 200 acres, and then we have a sister farm that's about 200 acres. But I've got friends that farm thousands of acres, you know, and I'm like, well, shoot, I'm just a little peon, you know.
But your cows have Apple Watches.
Yeah,
so
you're right.
You're not that far down the list.
We jokingly say we're high-tech rednecks. So, but you know, but I can fall in that stigma too myself. I was like, well, heck, he's got thousands of acres that he farms, and I'm 200 acres. I'm just I'm not even in that league, you know. But farmers are typically very welcoming and open and get excited when they hear about somebody wanting to be interested in it.
I think that's true of all people, because you were talking about that, and it made me think we have neighbors that moved to our street a couple years ago, and our neighbor, she's super interested in gardening. Yeah. So both of us planted our garden. I'm not going to say whose side of the street has a better garden, because it's probably not our garden. But the connection we have running produce back and forth, like, oh, I have way too many zucchini. Can you possibly use this? And our kids run back and forth sharing what we have. And all of a sudden, we're excited to try each other's food and to share it.
Yes.
And so what I hear you saying has been true in our lives is there's just this community, because I don't care you're ethnicity, I don't care your faith story, I don't care where you come from. We all get excited when a little seed grows.
Yes.
And when we can make something to share with someone else. And I kind of think that's the superpower.
And food brings us all together.
Well, now you're speaking my language.
Yeah. I mean, it really does, no matter what the situation is. And we still get together every Sunday night at my grandmother, 87-year-old grandmother's house for Sunday dinner, because we want our kids and her great grandkids to be in that moment and feel that when food brings us together, So not everybody can say they're fortunate enough to have that situation like we are. And I take it for granted a lot of times too, and I shouldn't, on having 4 generations living on the farm currently. And I can just walk to any of them's house. I can drop my son at my sister's house. He can play with his cousins. I can drop him off my parents' So it's pretty awesome to be in that situation.
But that's uniquely human. Anytime you're around something for a long time, you start to forget how blessed you are to be around, which is why we need these stories and these moments to really bring out the nuances and for you to realize, like, oh, actually, this is super cool.
Yeah.
And for the audience to hear, I may not have that, but I have this going. So I think that's uniquely unique.
And like the other morning, the sun was starting to rise, and we had a cow that had a new baby calf, and I'm out in the field checking on it. I'm like, man, how many people in the world are doing this right now? At 6 a.m. on an awesome morning, the sun's rising, there's a newborn baby calf, and the mom's licking it up, cleaning it off, doing her thing, and I'm just sitting here just soaking it in. Sometimes I have to stop myself and get in that moment, because I'm around it 24/7.
Okay, so your family was featured, had a whole docuseries about the Hatcher family dairy on National Geographic. What was that like?
Oh, man. So quite the experience, amazing experience. So long story short, a friend of a friend, his dad worked with my dad many moons ago, and he lives out in L.A., but he's from here. And he came back in town for the holidays and stopped in our place. We weren't there. And he called and said, I think we could do something with you guys TV-wise. And we thought, Chris, you've lost your mind. I mean, what, are you kidding me? He goes, no, man, it's amazing. Y'all got the vet, because my sister's got a veterinary clinic on the farm. He said, y'all got the vet stuff, you got the farm stuff, you got the family stuff. It's wholesome. And we said, yeah, whatever. We don't have time for that. So he just kept, every couple of weeks, kept on and on and on. And finally we said, okay, what's next? And he said, well, let me fly out there with a team of guys, producers, and we want to spend a couple of days with y'all. So they did, and filmed some stuff, and it's a sizzle, so it's a 5-minute highlight reel, and you send that off to networks, and hopefully somebody bites. Well, National Geographic locked on it immediately, and so we were off and running, and we were ready. We were going to start filming in March of 2020.
Oh, jeez.
And we know what happened then. So we thought the project was going to be over. We weren't going to get it started. Nobody knew anything at that time. So we started hearing, not negotiations, but talks again. And they said, we think we can make this happen in August. So we thought, okay, but if we do this, we want it to be family, farm, veterinary forward. And we wanted to have direct say-so in all the content. They said, that sounds great. So we started in August. It was miserably hot. It was terrible.
August in Tennessee isn't known for being
That's why we want to do it
breezy.
In March, but that's the cards that were dealt. So they were with us for 13 weeks. They followed me and my sister and my mom and my wife. They followed us for 13 weeks. And, it was pretty amazing during that time how we just said, y'all just hit record and follow us. I mean, we're not staging anything. It's as real as it gets. So we did that, and they said, well, it's going to be on National Geographic. And I'll never forget when I saw the first promo for it on cable TV. I was like, wow, that is amazing, because dairy gets kind of there's this negative stigma for dairy farming. You know how negative it can be on. There's there's some theories that it's abusive and there's kind of a negative aura around it. So they took a chance on us and named the show Hatcher Family Dairy with the word dairy in the show title, which is crazy in itself, in a good way. So when I saw that first promo, I was like, wow, I stopped and like, man, this is really going to happen. So it was 8 episodes, and it aired in July of 21. And then during that time, Disney merged with National Geographic, so we were then put on the Disney Plus platform, which gets you in front of millions and millions and millions of eyes.
Well, now I want to go watch it with the kids
So
tonight.
it's 8 episodes, and I'll tell you, we connected with people across the world.
Wow.
In good ways. It was amazing. Our demographic was like 2 to 92. I mean, we still get people from all over the United States that come to our store and hope to see us, and they'll see us and want to take pictures. It's like we're like these celebrities, and I'm like, no, I'm just a farmer, you know. So I think one of the most powerful stories out of this was there's this gentleman. He was on hospice care, but watched the show, and he wanted to meet us. So they brought him to the farm, and we got to spend about an hour with him. You talking about powerful.
Wow.
He connected with us. I don't know why. The feedback we've gotten from people is my whole family can watch it. It's wholesome. It's positive. And so I think that, you know, even if we impacted one person, I see it as a success. So
That gave me chill bumps.
Yeah.
Like up and down.
So it was just powerful moments, and we get letters in the mail from 5-year-olds that want to be farmers when they grow up, or want to be a vet, because my sister influenced the little girl to be a vet because she didn't think girls could be veterinarians, you know. So we feel like we had some impact there, and we've done some filming since then, but the world of entertainment is changing by the day on streaming and merging. And so we didn't get renewed on that platform because of the mergers, and it's so much movement. So we're hoping to put some of our own stuff out ourselves, because people, I mean, we can put on social media that we've cured cancer, but people want to know, when's the show coming back? You know, it's like, so, but we had so much fun with it. It was an awesome experience, and we hope to get to do that again, just because of the positive impact that we had on people, you know. And then you're sitting there and you're watching it the first time, you're like, do I really sound that Southern? Wow. Look how fat I look. Or look, you know, you're like, look at the most embarrassing thing in the world is to hear yourself and see yourself.
I
on
can't even listen to the
worldwide
podcast.
Yeah.
And that's way bigger.
Yeah,
and
on
there's
worldwide
no way.
television. So, but it's still amazing to go on Disney Plus, because our 3-year-old, we watched the Disney kind of the classics, and just to see our show on there is still amazing to me. So having that available to hundreds of millions across the world.
Oh, wow.
It would really be cool. You said earlier you all are producers, you're retailers, you're distributors. If you all also become a film studio, then you're really
That's my
have...
dad's like, man, maybe we could start like the Hatcher Channel Network. I was like, oh my gosh, you're killing me. But never say never. So
Charles, it has been a delight to have you here today. I think you do something so important in taking agriculture and giving a message behind it that makes it accessible to a lot of people, because you could be here and talk negative today about what's happening to farming. You could talk negative about having to innovate into robotics to say we shouldn't have to do these things. And instead, you give a message of positivity and of hope. And I can just tell from being around you really shortly that if someone in your own community of farmers is eager to learn and figure out how you all have been able to innovate, you're serving in a way that just is special to be around you. So thank you for what you're doing for the state, what your family has done for the state, for the country, right? For generations and generations. It's a real privilege to get to talk to you today.
Well, I really appreciate it. It's awesome to be here and share a little bit.
We have Charles Hatcher of Hatcher Family Farms, the dairy farm, one of the last 2 dairy farms in Williamson County. And he just gave a message of hope, of excitement around what his family is doing and the innovation that I think it just reminds me, at least, that agriculture is only a couple generations removed from all of our blood.
Sure.
And that it's just amazing. It's fun. It's interesting. And it impacts us every single day, whether we realize it or not.
We talked about a lot of stats with him, and he really gave them color. He made them come alive, that the average farmer is over the age of 60, that we're losing acres and acres of land every minute in the state of Tennessee, that honestly, I was shocked when I saw we're down to 150 dairy farms in the state of Tennessee, and that has been cut in half in the last handful of years. And so to see what they're doing at Hatcher, to innovate, to use technology, there was a lot of good takeaways. What I really left with was this feeling of community, that he talks endlessly about how much he loves his wife and how she's brought her skill sets to the table. I love how he talks about his sister, who's a vet, and what she does, what his dad is doing for the state of Tennessee. For the Hatchers, it's a family business through and through, and I loved seeing how positive and bright he was about that.
I think it really speaks to the fabric of America that has really been stretched and strained over the last handful of decades. And I think there's a lot to say about the loss of farming as part of that, in that community that you spoke about, in kids going across the street, coming together, just in their own response to COVID, and how they arranged a contactless drive-through distribution network effectively overnight. And that comes from a place of community. And I just love that that is still a message that he's out waving the flag for. And that's ultimately what he said. I'm out waving the flag for farming and helping take away some of the stigma that non-commercial farmers can still be just as passionate about agriculture. And I think that's a redeeming message, to say you can grow a garden. And even if you live in an apartment in some high-rise somewhere, said you can have a participation in agriculture. And I think that's a really great message that will open up people's hearts and minds to that spiritual experience of planting, harvesting, giving, sharing, all of which is rooted in something that has been with America since day one.
And he left me with this feeling of scrappiness that we talk about a lot as the underpinning of entrepreneurship, grit, being scrappy. So even if somebody listening doesn't give 2 hoots about farming or has never thought about it, this is a story that is purely Americana, purely Tennessee, that there's no victim mentality when everything gets upturned. He talks about a time when they almost lost the farm, where they had to innovate, and just the willingness to do the hard thing was really inspiring.